Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
Holy hell, it takes a lot for me to get super stoked off of a regular season basketball game, and Joel Embiid just provided that for me. A 50-burger. My man dropped 50 points and he was a lethal weapon. I seriously don't know what my favorite possession was out of Joel Embiid. I have a list, and I have a long list of the amazing plays that he made. Was it the step back fadeaway with the clock running down? He waited it out. He let the clock go down. And here he is on a final possession doing what you need to do. Basketball IQ, taking down the time, and then beating someone. Step back fadeaway Jay right inside the three-point line on the left side of the court. Nothing but net. Prior to that, he made an outstanding defensive play on Zach LaVine. So I'm going to throw the defensive plays in there as well, because you know me, I take so much pride on that end that they're just as special as anything offensively that helped this team. So was it the step back fadeaway late? Was it the prior possession on Zach LaVine? Was it the Euro step in the second quarter? That was outstanding. How about in the third quarter? He had a massive three-pointer, and right after that, he gets a huge steal on the defensive end, which results in a two. Not him scoring the two, but the Sixers score a two for the Sixers to take about a 10-point lead in that moment. Unfortunately, the bench ended up coughing that lead up, but that was still such a great play and a great stretch for the Sixers. He made 15 of 17 at the line. And how about grabbing offensive rebounds? He finished with 17 total boards, but I remember specifically on one possession, him and Tobias Harris together easily destroyed the opposition, getting whatever offensive rebound they wanted to get. So out of all of those plays, and there's probably 10,000 more that we could get into, which one's my favorite? Ooh, I don't know. It's probably got to be the fadeaway step back Jay, though. Because you're telling me this man is 7 foot tall, you need a bucket at the end, and it's no longer just, oh, you need a bucket? Let's dump it into Joel Embiid. While you can utilize that method, while you can go down that road, you can use him in every single area on the court. And I always question, when you needed a bucket, when your best man is a center, knowing the spacing issues of Ben Simmons and some others on this team, how would it work? I never would have imagined in a million years Joel Embiid would be this elite, off the bounce, off the dribble, with step backs, with threes, with everything. Every part of his game is nuts. What's the most wild part about this? This guy started playing basketball 10 years ago, and now he is the favorite to win the MVP of the NBA. How did it get this good this quick? How did he get this dominant in such a short amount of time? I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't care. The fact that it's happening is what I care about. And the way that I look at NBA regular season, sometimes I get criticized because I don't put so much value into it. But when you have a player who is taking over games and taking over atmospheres the way that he's doing consistently, I am so damn engaged. And I always am. I mean, it's Sixers basketball. I've been doing this for how many years? So I'm always diving deep heavily into what this team does, even though that I don't necessarily always relate regular season to postseason. I go through the journey all the time. But this is different, all right? We went through the Allen Iverson era. When you have a player like AI that's so special, the regular season is different. The way you embrace it, the entertainment value, it hits another gear. And with what Joel Embiid is doing now, I'll relate it to, it's not the same, but it is very similar. Bryce Harper, whenever he's up to bat, you drop whatever you do. Baseball's background noise for some. But if you're working around the house, if you're cooking dinner, if you're getting a drink, and you hear Bryce Harper's walk-up song, what do? You get your ass right in front of the television and you watch the entire at-bat because your eyes are glued. Well, with Joel Embiid, your eyes are glued. And if they're not, you better fucking glue them because you're missing out on an amazing run. And he had some help, and he needed help. Tobias Harris was the perfect Robin in this game. He finished with 22 points. He grabbed 12 rebounds himself. And oh, by the way, he had 7 assists. So he was doing it all. I was on the triple-double watch. I was really pulling for him to maybe snag a couple more assists. Late in the game, hey, Joel, why don't we dump it into you here? Hey, Joel, why don't you camp out over here? Let me get those apples. But Tobias Harris, whether it was in transition or whether it was just making good cuts to the basket, getting himself in great position for an easy layup, I thought Tobias Harris was very strong, and he showed you the version that he has been majority of the time this season. The bench play continues to be such a major problem. And we all understand that you're missing out on Ben Simmons and Shake Milton, which does hurt this team's play and their identity and their flow and rhythm. I mean, you're talking about your 2 ball handlers. Shake Milton is your ball handler off the bench, and Ben Simmons is your go-to guy with the ball for 37 minutes of a basketball game. So it's obviously going to hurt you. But I didn't love the way Doc Rivers handled it. I thought in the first quarter you saw a stretch of poor play that allowed the Bulls to get back into things. And then late in the game, he went with the same philosophy. Now, Seth Curry was out there with the bench, but I think in this style of game, you might have to try and stagger Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris so you can try and make the most of it. You might still go down because you have Furkan out there who blows, by the way. Does anyone really want to challenge me on that take now? Yeah, all those Furkan lovers really switched quickly when you saw what he is 99% of the time. So it's tough. And even if you stagger Tobias and Joel, I'm not saying that it would have ultimately related into this awesome success, but I do know that you have a better shot. When Denzel Valentine hits a 3 and Tyrese Maxey goes for a lazy inbound and Archie Diacono gets a ball back and puts it up and hits the ground hard and they take the lead, that can't happen. Now, I don't fault him for using Tyrese Maxey based off the circumstances, but that's one of those, yo, son, we're going to be watching film after this. Now, that's a big-time teaching moment, and based off of the lack of skill players and what he brings to the table, like Tyrese Maxey, he's got a skill set that no one on this team has, whether he has rookie flaws or rookie moments or tough possessions. You have to live with that based off of your limitations when it comes to ball handling and creating and going to the rack. I thought that there were moments in time that he probably should have got a foul call. He didn't get any foul calls. Maybe that's just being young and having to earn those stripes, if you will. But I thought that he had a tough stretch, some tough plays out there, some pretty ugly moments. But I don't fault Doc for putting him out there. I fault Doc for some of those full bench rotations, though. You can't be doing it. You can't be doing it. You got to go another road. You can't ask for them to try and hold the fort. They can't hold the fort. It's pretty inevitable. You got Matisse Thybulle in the starting rotation, and speaking of him, what he did on Zach LaVine early, yeah, it was definitely game-changing. He put on the clamps, and he made Zach LaVine frustrated, and even when LaVine somewhat got a bit hotter, down the important moments, Matisse gets his hands in the grill, and the ball goes out of bounds. This was about, with I think 1:44 to go. It was definitely under 2 minutes because the league, the NBA, went to review, the referees did, to make sure that it did hit off LaVine's leg and out of bounds because they initially ruled it Chicago Bulls ball. But I bring that up because even when LaVine started to make a couple shots and all, Matisse Thybulle still made some pretty brilliant efforts defensively that forced Zach LaVine to turn the ball over. But yeah, LaVine definitely got more into rhythm. Now, his stat line afterward, the efficiency's not going to pop and it's not sexy. He finished 9 of 28 for 30, but I thought it was so ugly early that made that look way worse than what it was. As the game continued to go on, he did start to make shots, but I do want to point this out, that when you see Zach LaVine from afar and you don't watch him every single game, you have a different version in your mind on what he's going to be. I like Zach LaVine. I think he has grown into a nice player, and he's only going to continue to adapt and continue to become someone who can score the rock. I like Zach LaVine's game. But before, when it was the Ben Simmons conversation and should you trade him for Harden, Beal, LaVine, people made it seem like LaVine was a no-brainer. And I always bring up, yeah, when you have LaVine, though, you look at him differently. You don't dissect LaVine's game the same way that you do someone on the Sixers. If LaVine was here, you'd be shredding that guy for way more plays than you think because you just don't watch him night in and night out with the microscope. I like Zach LaVine. But there are some flaws in his game that you wouldn't like, that would piss you off, that would make you scream and make you feel like you wanted to trade his ass out of town too if he was here. I just hate that. I hate the from afar topic. What's on the other side? The grass isn't always greener. Very cliche of a statement, but I think it perfectly describes where we are at sometimes with some of these athletes that are not in this city. Speaking of the bench, Danny Green, he was 4 of 8 from 3. I think he finished 4 of 10 from the field, but he did come up with a crucial three-pointer. Very smooth, nice-looking J, had the legs under him, good stroke, good form, textbook-looking J. That was definitely crucial for this team as they were pushing and pursuing. I just thought the energy out of Joel Embiid really did force this team to really elevate, though. Whether it was staring at the fans late, and I know there wasn't that much time left in the game, but that just really describes the type of motor that Joel Embiid played with tonight, where he was looking around as if there were fans. To be clear, there was no one in the actual stadium, but he was waiting for the MVP cheers to happen. And those are the moments. I think it was during Coffee with Brodes. And if you don't know what Coffee with Brodes is, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I go live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Brodes81. And I just hang out with you. I hang out with you for an hour. I have my coffee. We relax. We talk. You ask me questions. I respond. And it's a fun back and forth, a good time to kind of just have fun, casual conversation. Someone asked me, what's the best situation? Is it going to the Eagles game at the Link where everyone's going nuts? Is it a Sixers game when the Wells Fargo Center erupts? Is it the packed Citizens Bank Park? Is it the Wells Fargo Center for the Flyers? And my answer was, there's nothing better than a key moment in a basketball game at the Wells Fargo when maybe you get a big-time shot, a big-time play, the opposing team calls timeout, and the entire Wells Fargo Center gets up on their feet, and it's electric, and the voice just echoes around the building, and the place goes wild, and you hear the PA guys on the PA announcer, and they just go nuts, and everyone goes nuts, and here comes the Sixers dancers, or the Sixers sticksers. When that all happens, that moment, that explosive moment, it's tremendous. And that was my selection. But I compare that to, or I want to bring that up, because when Joel Embiid did that, I missed out on that moment. That was something where I wish I could close my eyes and picture myself in that type of atmosphere. I've been missing fans in sports since the beginning of this whole nonsense, right? But right there, when you see the close-up of his face and you see his arms like going nuts. When I was covering the team for 97.3, I went to a game where he dropped 40-plus against the Atlanta Hawks. And it was so similar to that type of dominant performance, I put myself right back in that situation. I put myself right back in that moment. And it's crazy, and I definitely do miss it. Speaking of some other guys, Dwight Howard at one point in this game seriously had 4 points, 3 rebounds, no fouls, in 1 minute of play. The Dwight Howard experience. It's something, all right. It's ups and downs, and it's very emotional. Speaking of emotional, I am very emotional when it comes to Orbit Energy and Power because I love them so much. With over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, they are home to your solar experts in residential and commercial projects. They are dedicated to making sure that your project is completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Their solar program eliminates your electric bill completely. They offer flexible financing solutions such as $0 down. They also provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. So check out their information. It is all down below in the description. I felt bad for Thad Young and Wendell Carter, although they battled hard and they showed fight. Like, Thad Young is an experienced defender, a gritty guy, knowledgeable of the game, right? He's been around the block for a little bit. So he's your best bet. But how many times did we see them look around after Joel Embiid play that was so damn awesome, and they sort of shrugged their shoulders? What do you want me to do? How am I supposed to stop him? Please let me know. Draw it up on the board what I should do to make sure Joel Embiid doesn't do something awesome on the next possession. Oh, there's nothing. There's literally nothing that will stop this man. He is on a tear. But here's Thad Young. I mean, he's lost. He's lost. Wendell Carter, what are you supposed to do? You got nothing. Zippo. I think it's priceless to watch whoever's on the other side. After a bucket, the ball goes out of bounds. They're waiting for the inbound. They look over to the coach, put the two hands up, shake their head a little bit, almost snarl in like this negative way, or they make this weird face with their mouth as if like a stank face and a shake of the head. They can't even believe it. It's unbelievable. But thinking about faces and all, I saw a beautiful shot of Doc Rivers on the bench, and I brought up the play of Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons let's get this together. When Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris were grabbing rebounds nonstop on one possession, you saw a shot, the angle, beautiful camera work. It grabbed Doc Rivers in the background, mask on, kind of underneath the nose, with some high claps, just appreciating the effort, appreciating the work ethic, and appreciating the domination on the glass. To do that against the Bulls, the mindset, that's what I love to see. I love to see the mindset. Going up against that Bulls team on the glass, sign me up for that every single damn night. Now, speaking of Ben Simmons, because I accidentally just brought up his name, it sucks to not see him play. And they're rolling him out again with the flu, sickness, illness. And I'm not going to tell you that it's not that. I'm not going to tell you that it's not an illness or anything like that. But just knowing how inconsistent the training staff is, and this is conspiracy theory. All right, this is Brodes conspiracy theory. I'll put out a disclaimer. I'm not saying it is. I'm not demanding that I need more information. I'm just saying right now, what I feel could be happening is that this illness, this sickness, it is used as some sort of distraction. He had knee issues. Is this part of the knee issues coming up again? Do I really believe that a sickness is going to hold out Ben Simmons for a couple of games? And I know what world we're living in. I know about COVID-19. I promise you, I've been living through this. I've been experiencing this. I know about it. So I know how serious this is and the COVID and the protocols and the health and safety concerns. I'm with you. I'm not buying it. I think there's something to be said about injuries in the past, and this could be a cover-up to buy some time. That's my conspiracy theory. You can believe it, you can disagree, you can agree, you can think I'm nuts. I personally don't care. But I don't buy it. And speaking of injuries, did you see Joel Embiid walking underneath the tunnel after the first half was over? When that second quarter ended and they were walking into the tunnel to go back to the locker room, that stiffness and that lower back, and he's kind of wobbling. And not only is he wobbling, though, he's on the floor, he's hitting the deck hard, he's grabbing the ball on the ground, like he's doing it all regardless of this back. I love the intensity, but there is a bit inside of me as well that gets a little nervous when I see it, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Knowing that back is lingering, watching him stretch out all the time underneath the basket, or when he's sitting in his isolation chair underneath the basket, he's going shoulder, or he's moving his shoulders and he's stretching his arms over his head to kind of work out that back. With all that happening constantly, almost every shot I see him, there is something inside of me that gets nervous every time he takes a hard fall, because he is on the ground a lot. There's something to be said about how much this man is, well, that's because he works hard and he's in the paint and he's getting offensive boards, and guys are going to foul him hard. This is Joel Embiid we are speaking about, but I do think it's also something that can be limited a little bit, right? Does it have to be to this level? Does he have to be on the ground this much? I think it's a fair question to ask. If that could be toned down a bit for my liking, please, because everyone knows Joel Embiid is thinking about how I feel about him. Isn't that obvious? All right, I think right now would be a fantastic time to head on over to the Anytime Hotline. Your reactions to the game. 50 points from Joel Embiid. I want to hear from the Maniacs, the 76ers Maniacs out there. Here we begin.
Ooh. Joel Embiid, 50-piece. That's what I'm talking about. He's the MVP, man. No doubt about it. I see all these people in the mix. I don't want to hear it. Joel Embiid is the MVP of the league. Hands down. This game wasn't pretty, but he carried us.
Oh, he did. And that excitement, that woohoo in the beginning, I'm with you 100%. I'm someone that it takes me a while to buy into teams, and except for the Phillies for some reason. There's a soft spot in my heart, and it shouldn't be, and it's a huge flaw on my part that I get sucked into that damn team every single year. But I digress. It's not about the Phillies right now. For someone like me that specifically for the Sixers, I need time. You got to sell me the package that you're delivering out there on the floor. For Joel to be this much of a monster and no one touching him. And I really do believe that the reason it is this exciting is because of the consistency side of things. 35, 37, 33, 38, 42, 50. Like, you are constantly getting in the 30s out of Joel Embiid and taking over games. He's done this before where he's dominated, but it would come at a time where, let's say the Sixers play Monday, Wednesday, Friday in a week. Maybe you get 42 points on Monday, you'll get 18 points on the Wednesday game, and then on Friday you get 24. And then the following game, whichever day that falls on, I don't know why I wanted to describe this with games, or days, but whenever the next game would be, let's say he gives you a 38, and then it would be 18, 17, 22, 37. Like, you would see, my point is, you would see those 37-point nights and those 36-point nights, but it would also be surrounded by an 18, a 19, a 22. Now, your 50s and 42s are being supported and surrounded by 32s, 33s, 31s. The other night, he had an off day. He really did. The other night, he had an off day against the Rockets. Do you know what his stat line was? 31, 11, and 9. He had 9 assists. 9 assists. He was 1 assist shy of a triple-double. He didn't look great. It wasn't the best night for Joel Embiid. That was a bad Joel Embiid night. 31, 11, and 9, and 1 assist shy of a triple-double. That's where we're at. The consistency factor of Joel Embiid is what makes this beautiful. Just fantastic out of Joel.
After all the drama that happened yesterday with the Eagles, it's really nice to just get a good quality Sixers win tonight, bolstered by Joel Embiid, the absolute undoubted MVP of the league right now, and a generational talent if I've ever seen one. This generation's equivalent to Hakeem Olajuwon, and the guy only started playing basketball when he was like 14, 15. Is that what it was? The guy is just amazing. For the first 50-point game since I was 7 years old. Just a great night.
Oh, it was a good night. And I like the fact that you brought up, look, it's been a painful couple of hours, a couple of days. Hell, it's been painful since September when the Eagle season started. But yes, with Carson Wentz drama and the dilemma that happened there, to appreciate a moment like the Sixers are giving you, it's definitely nice and it feels very good. In terms of Joel Embiid's history, I remember hearing a story about him skipping out on camp, the camp that allowed him to become the Joel Embiid that he is today. He wanted to stay home. He didn't want to go to the camp. He wanted to stay around and play video games with his family, and instead he's skipping out on days. Like, that's crazy. It's crazy to think about. He is MVP level, and I don't know if it's even close to anybody else right now. I think you can put LeBron in every single damn year, and there were a couple weeks ago where I thought LeBron should be more in the I thought people were running away with Joel a few weeks ago, and I definitely stood by LeBron James having more of a fight. But if this is seriously the Joel Embiid that it is, and it does seem like it's trending in that direction, although there is a back problem that we need to make sure that we stay on top of because that can limit what he does down the road here. If this is the Joel Embiid, as much as I love LeBron, knowing how the NBA works too, giving the MVP to LeBron isn't sexy. It's not fun. It doesn't pop. It's boring. You can give it to him every year. regardless, though, Joel Embiid would earn it if this is what it is. And it's so rare. Like, watching basketball for over the last 10, 15 years, when you throw on SportsCenter after a night's over, you see all these top players. Remember watching Steph with the prime of the Warriors drop 50, and you're like, wow, man, that's so much fun. That's so entertaining. That's awesome. You would watch James Harden with the Rockets give you 50, give you 60 in a game, and you just watch all these highlights throughout the NBA of these dominant players scoring buckets in this crazy manner. Well, now it's your guy. Now he's on your team. Now you're dissecting it for 72 games, and you're emotionally tied. It just intensifies the greatness of it. It's great watching others do it, and it makes basketball super fun, but it adds just another layer of context when it's something you care about so much, the way that we all care about the 76ers, where when you tune in to watch this happen, it hits different, and it puts you in your feels. It gives me a little bit of the Drake vibes. You know, Drake's always in his feels. Oh, yeah, that's how I am right now.
Mama, there goes that man. Holy cow. Joel Embiid is the MVP. He is the reason you tank and you go through the process. He is the reason why you get high draft picks. To get players like this and performances like this, players who, on an off night, can will a team to victory. Tobias Harris shouldn't go overlooked. Also, shout out to Matisse Thybulle. He got that huge stop on Zach LaVine where on the out-of-bounds play at the end. But Joel Embiid.
I love that you brought up a lot of great points there. You brought up the fact that Tobias Harris should not be overlooked, and that is correct. It's funny, the dude had a solid night, Tobias did. But when a man drops 50, you're somewhat of the stepbrother, but Tobias had his handprints all over this game. You brought up the process, and I think that that's just fascinating, and that could be a podcast in its own, and that will be a discussion in this city for the next 10,000 years, and maybe even beyond, when it's year 75,000, and Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio is still a thing. They're going to bring up the process and what happened. That's how much of a heavy storyline it was. But for all the anti-processors, this is why. This is why. This is what you get. In the NBA, you don't win a damn thing as the 8th seed. You don't win a damn thing as the 7th seed. You don't win a damn thing when you are stuck. You win when you have NBA superstars. You win a championship when you have insane level dominant forces that are unguardable, that have a different mindset, that are charged up every night offensively and defensively when things really matter. And with the trajectory of Joel Embiid, that's what you have. This is why you tank. The process worked whether you win a championship or doesn't win a championship. The fact that you got this player in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, who hopefully is in the process, no pun intended, to get into his version of where Joel Embiid is, you put yourself in the best position possible by landing these two guys. The process worked. Championship or not, getting this caliber of talent made the process work. If that ends in the championship, that's the added bonus. But to be in contention, to be in the spot, to have that person that can get you there, whether it works or doesn't work, you have the guy now. Getting the guy is what the process was about. You have the guy. Winning the championship is hard. It's not easy. A lot of fantastic players in this league never got a ring. There's a reason for it, because it's not an easy task. But in terms of, did the process work? Did it not work? It worked. Look what you watch every night. It worked. Appreciate it.
Hey, bros. What's good? Happy weekend, first and foremost. Hey, man, so I just want to get your thoughts. So obviously, Joel Embiid went off, right? And solid game. I'm glad to see it. Chicago Bulls, cool team, whatever. Want to know your thoughts. Zach LaVine, Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, thoughts on those in general. And then, what do you think about Joel, Ben, Zach LaVine lineup? And then, would you trade for that? What would you give away?
You kind of threw me in for a little bit of a loop here. Are we talking? I'm going to re-listen to this. All right, I'm sorry. I got thrown into a little bit of a loop. I'm going to pause and then digest.
Looking forward to your thoughts, bro. Have a good night. I'm glad to see it. Chicago Bulls, cool team, whatever. Want to know your thoughts, Zach LaVine, Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, thoughts on those in general, and then what do you think about Joel, Ben, Zach LaVine lineup? And then, would you trade for that? What would you give away? Looking forward to your thoughts, bro.
Okay, so it seems, and maybe I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this the right way, and I guess I can't really ask anybody. There's nobody else here, so I'm just going to give it to you the way that I kind of heard it. Originally, he asked for LaVine, Simmons, and Thybulle. Just my thoughts in general. Well, I thought LaVine's a growing player. He's a fun player to watch. He has added to his game, but he's not in like this top tier of guys that are must-have. It would be a nice... I don't know. Like, do you mean in terms of the Sixers? Like, I guess there's just so much here. Like, I like LaVine. Is he like this winning player that changes your franchise? No, I don't think he's at that level. He would be like a third piece kind of guy on a championship caliber team, in my opinion. With Ben Simmons, I want to see what he does. Like, I'm disappointed that he drops 42 points and I haven't been able to see him since. I want to see him compete again since that explosive night and since he mentioned that he changed his mentality. Now, Michael Kasky-Blomain does a fantastic job covering the Sixers for CBS Sports. And he tweeted this out during actually, I think it was right before the game started. So for the crowd that says Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid can't work, here's the Sixers' net efficiency with Ben Simmons on and off the court. When both are on, they are plus 14.2. When just Embiid is on the floor, they're minus 2.5. When just Simmons is on the floor, they're minus 11.1. And when both are off the floor, they're minus 1.7. So when they are both on the floor, their net efficiency is by far significantly better than when one is on the floor or when both are off the floor. So it's not rocket science here to see that this team does work with both of them on the floor. The problem is you won't have a 50-burger and a 42-point night in the same night. And that's fine. Everyone's like, I want Ben to be more aggressive. But there's a difference between being more aggressive and demanding 30 points. If Embiid gives you 35 and 12, and Ben Simmons gives you 19, 12, and 8, that's both players having an insanely successful night. That's both players having a great night. And that does happen. It might not be 28 for Ben and 30 for Joel, but it doesn't need to be that. It doesn't need to be. It needs to be Ben being aggressive and taking advantage of his mismatches while Embiid still has the great night. And then both of them can still be classified as having really good nights. I don't understand, like, how that's so hard to comprehend. And I'm not saying the caller was saying that. I'm just kind of went off on a rant on my own. But it was brought up because with Simmons, I don't know what he is right now because he had that 42-point night. You talk about him changing his mindset and his philosophy, and we haven't seen him due to this illness. And I want to see him have this, quote, mentality change that he's been working on with Joel Embiid on the floor as well. And that's kind of how it all tied together because I know they can work on the floor more than what people think they can. Matisse Thybulle is very interesting to me because he has a unique skill set that will help this team in the playoff moments. Like, I think he is very awesome. He's a great piece to have off your bench. He's a weapon. He really is. He's a weapon you can utilize. If you take Ben off the floor, or even if you have Ben on the floor with him, 2-3 zone, whatever it is, the fact that you have a lethal defenseman like that who can really... Defenseman, I feel like I'm in my hockey mode. A lethal defender, it's wild. The problem is, though, he hurts you so much on the offensive side. He has zero offensive game. A Joel, Ben, and LaVine lineup. That was something that was mentioned. You can't get LaVine without giving up a Ben. Like, there's nothing, and I'm not doing that. So, there's just no way that you can get a LaVine. There's no way with this team you can get a LaVine. I'm not giving up all these first-round picks. And that. Like, the LaVine thing is not realistic. It's just not realistic. So I'm not going to go down that road because I just don't see how it is possible. But I am interested to see what Daryl Morey does and what his next moves are. So with all that being said, I thought that was such a damn fun game. I had a blast watching that game. Look, it's Friday night, just kind of relaxing on this Friday night, not doing anything crazy. And the fact that that was what was on my television screen, thank you. Thank you. I think it's fair to just say thank you, Joel, Tobias, Doc, the Sixers. Thank you. You gave me a lot of entertainment. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode, and I will see you next time.